Welcome, everybody. Welcome to CIS240 Advanced Computer Forensics. So you know who I am by now, so welcome to class. A couple of things. I posted your second assignment. It's due on the 28th of February. This is my bad for posting it late. I've been a little busy, so if you need some more time on it, that's fine. I just wanted to keep the date of the 28th to keep at least our assignments on track. If you need some more time, that's just peachy. Just take the time that you need. Again, reach out to me if you need anything. So anyway, let's get started. So what we're going to talk about this week is we're going to talk about exploitation analysis. So let me kind of scope this out for you here a little bit. There's two types of people. Well, there's more than two that work in this field. There are the people that are the technicians. The technicians are the ones that sit in the back with the tools, and stereotypically they're the ones, with the Metallica t-shirts and the Jolt Cola and the pizzas and order Taco Bell. I'm, kind of paraphrasing, of course, and or stereotyping, of course. But they're the ones, or we are the ones that sit with the tools and kind of do the things that we do to actually determine the nuts and bolts of an exploit. We're the ones that look at what was attacked, exactly what kind of code was used, and we tend to be very technical, tend to be very hands-on, and we kind of do that kind of work. Now, another type of person that works in the field is more customer or business facing. Now, let me explain that. Like, for example, if you were, or we were working for a large organization, I'm just going to throw out some names just randomly. The U.S. government, or we worked for the U.S. military. Let's pick some consumer banking firms. Chase, J.P. Morgan Chase, or Citibank. How about some utilities like Exelon or BP or any of these large companies? They have people that work at these organizations that deal with cybersecurity and exploitation, among other things, analysts. Anyway, these people are analysts. They face the business and face the public. They're not necessarily the technicians that are in the back room that roll their sleeves up and have all the tools and kind of do all this. To kind of like draw an analogy, it's kind of like if you're a coder or if you work in computer software, there are the coders and there are the analysts. The coders are the ones that kind of put it all together, and the analysts are the one that look at the bigger picture and do more design. Not that one is harder than the other or one is more complex than the other. They're very, very both challenging jobs, but they're very different in what they do. So if you work in the field of computer forensics, you get that sort of division of labor. So this week, or here, we're going to talk a little bit more about the analyst side of it. So the analysts are the folks that, when a breach occurs, are usually asked or charged to do two things. Remember the difference. Charged means you are going to do this and you are going to give this to me. One of the things that you would do as an analyst working for a large organization, and you're facing the business, meaning that, to draw a scenario for you, you're the one in the boardroom that sits up, and does the presentation on different cybersecurity laws. You would do the presentation on your cybersecurity plan. So you face very important people in that organization. You report to maybe the chief financial officer or the chief information officer, maybe a president or a vice president of the company. And one of your jobs is to be able to explain things in fairly easy terms that non-technical people would know. For example, if I am a chief information officer for J.P. Morgan Chase, and you are working in cybersecurity and you're an analyst, I may want a weekly briefing from you. I may want every Monday from 10 to 10:30, we meet via Zoom or in the conference room at the Chase Tower. We order some coffee, and I'm like, all right, give me my briefing of this week. What does our state of our servers, any hacks that are potential, what threats are out there. And I don't got a degree in computer science, and I don't know what all these cybersecurity tools are. I don't really know. All I know is we got a bunch of servers. We have a bunch of mobile applications, and your job as the analyst is to explain to me exactly the state of affairs within an organization. So that's what an analyst does. Now, as part of being an analyst, you're going to be expected to do briefings on things like this. So, for example, in our example, let's just say, again, I'm the Chief Information Officer of JP Morgan Chase, and let's say there is a breach. Let's say that all of our mobile Chase apps have been exploited where people that, I don't know, use the, pardon me, I don't have a cough button on this, and I'm a little sneezy. Let's just say that there's a feature on our Chase app that we take a picture of a check and we could deposit the check based on taking a picture of it. Let's just say, for example, that feature on our mobile application platform has been breached and someone was able to gather all of the pictures of all of the checks that were deposited in Chase accounts from January to February. Of course, I'm just making this up. So your job as an analyst would be to explain this to me. I'm this Chief Information Officer, and I'm like, all right, we're going to meet, and you're going to explain this to me. You're not going to really give me the nuts and bolts and talk to me about the different tools that we use. You're not going to say, okay, Bob, according to Bloomberg and Associates, there's different operating systems. We have the Apple iOS operating system programmed in Swift. We have the Android operating systems, these versions programmed in these. I'm like, blah, blah. I'm like, well, no. I don't understand that. Okay, tell me what happened. Don't go in the nuts and bolts. I'm not a developer. I'm not a tools guy. I'm a Chief Information Officer. I report to the president or to the executive board. Just tell me in English, right? Or whatever your natural language is, what happened. So that's what we're going to be. That's what I really want to, I'm stuttering here. That's what I expect for you guys to be able to do. I call it, boardroom diplomacy, where sometimes when we study something, we're used to talking to professors or we're used to talking to students, but we forget when we're working in the real world that we're going to be speaking to neither of them. We're going to be speaking to customers that just want to know how this affects them, or we're going to be speaking to an executive board that just needs to know what happened. So let's talk about the 4 pillars of exploitation analysis here. The first pillar of exploitation analysis is to be able to create a summary of the exploit. Sounds simple, right? It's not always simple. The summary of the exploit is going to go beyond what you read in the news. And this is the tough part about researching these things, where let's just say in the example that I just mentioned about a fictitious, again, pointing this out, fictitious breach of JP Morgan Chase, where someone was able to access the pictures on mobile devices of the checks that customers took pictures of. Okay, now that's something that you would read in the news. That's something that you probably would be able to get on the web. That's something you probably would be able to glean from other sources. But is it really a summary of it? It's not. It's not in a lot of depth. Think about it. If I am a CEO for JP Morgan Chase and you need to describe for me a summary of the exploit, right? And I'm in the boardroom and I got, and nowadays you're on Zoom and I'm like, all right, explain to me what happened. And if you tell me what happened, sir, or ma'am, it says ma'am, let's say I'm a female. Ma'am, this is what happened. Someone was able to access our app on mobile devices and get pictures of all the checks that were written and deposited in Chase consumer accounts. I would look at you and say, you're getting paid $100,000 a year. You got to do better than that for a summary. how many were affected? Which markets were affected? Is this only consumer customers, right? What about our commercial customers? Do our commercial customers have apps on their phones? Has anyone looked to see if they have been breached? What is the, I'm still trying to stick with the summary. What markets? Is this only U.S. markets? Have we had this breach reported in our Japanese market? Are they different apps that we run there because it's a different language? I don't know. Yeah, I could look it up. I'm the chief information officer. I probably got some inkling of our mobile application rollout. And is it only on Android phones? Is it on Apple phones? What happened? So this is where things become difficult. Not difficult, but more tricky. Remember one of the things I mentioned to you, that a summary of something is not just gleaning facts. And it's hard to explain to someone in an academic world this, because especially over the past 25 years, which means you, if you're under the age of 25 or 30, we tend to go on the web for everything. And we still do. I go on the web for everything, and I'm twice your age. But we have to remember that sometimes that when we read something, and we always hear if it's on the internet, it must be true, which we all know is kind of funny anyway. But I want you to really think about that. I want you to think about, they put on at least the mentality of an investigative reporter, and think about the old days when you see these old movies where, the gal goes out with a cigarette and the cap that says press on it and goes out and investigates and gets what happened and writes for the newspaper and everything. That person wasn't looking on the internet. That person was the internet. You know what I'm saying? That person was the source of this information. Didn't get it. They were the source. And sometimes I mention that, and because I'm an author of a few things, and sometimes if I'm in a narcissistic mood, which is kind of not often, someone might say, well, where'd you get this? Did you get this off the internet? And sometimes I would say, I am the source. I am the source of this. I didn't look this up. I am the source. And I actually saw that once when just recently when we had a snowstorm locally, and someone asked a meteorologist, I forget what her name was. It was a meteorologist for a local news agency about where she got this, because she predicted 1.5 feet of snow when we got like 10 inches or something. And someone asked her, it's like, well, you said we'd get 10 inches and, we were supposed to get, 1.5 feet. What was your source? You know what she said? She says, I was the source. I'm the meteorologist. I looked at the data. I did the forecast. I looked at all of this. And when I went on the news and the National Weather Service asked me about how much snow we were going to get, I said, this is what we're going to get. I am the source of this. And I love that. I love that. She didn't say, well, look, and then not everyone got their phones out and started Googling things. And oh my God, that drives me crazy, where people just Google facts. Well, I looked on Google and Wikipedia says this, and I Googled this news source and they say this, that, and the other thing. Don't get caught in that. You're better than that. Okay, so when you work as a forensic investigator, or you do the analysis and someone asks you for the summary of an exploit, and I'm paying you to do this, if you come to me with things I can get off the web, there's a problem. Now, what does that mean for you? Well, that doesn't mean immediately for now that you would, I don't know. I'll let you draw your own conclusions for that. I really would. But what I'm trying to express to you is a summary of the exploit isn't from things that you can get necessarily in source. Sometimes you should be the source, right? Where, like, I kind of gave you those examples where, one of the things that, drives me crazy, and I call it Google-itis. You've done it. I've done it. And I've been around people that have done it, where you're sitting at a bar having a cold one, and someone says something like, hey, you know what? Pick something. I'll say something like, yeah, well, I'll stay away like from politics or religion, which is hard to do these days. I'll say something like benign, like, yeah, the Cubs were the most underrated team of the 1980s. And someone, which is subjective, right? And someone will say, no, they were not underrated because, they, were, and then all of a sudden now everyone gets their smartphones out. Click, 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 click. And someone says, according to Wikipedia, they were the most winning team between 1985 and 1987. I'm making this up because they weren't. But you get the point. Now everyone around the bar or wherever is Googling facts. Let's pick something strange, like Vermont is the coolest state in New England. Now everyone gets their things out. No, according to this, Vermont has this for recreation and ranks 18th in resident satisfaction of living in the United States. So pretty soon you get people just expressing facts. That's not knowledge. That's not explaining anything. That's not putting things out for me that I need to make it. If I'm the president of the United States, right, and I get people around me that explain things to me, I just want them to lay out things for me so I could make my own conclusion on what I need to do. So that's why I think this first bullet is hard. It really is, because you need to be the source for this. You be the source. So let's move on. One of the other things that you'd be expected to do is, in somewhat of functional detail, how did the exploit happen? Now, you can get a little technical on this. Again, if I'm JP Morgan Chase and the CIO and you got to explain to me how this exploit happened, you can get semi-technical. You can say because of a vulnerability, and I'm making this up, because of a vulnerability in the ice cream sandwich operating system, the hacker was able to inject their own code that would go to data stored on the phone and post it on the web, right? And then more detail on that. But see, that was fairly technical because I would probably ask you, things like, were the pictures on the cloud? Were they on Chase Cloud? Were they on Google Cloud? Were they on Facebook? Where were the pictures of these checks? Were they kept on the phone? I don't know. So explain to me how the exploit happened, and you can get fairly technical within reason. And again, it's a judgment call. I may be interested as a chief, and as a chief information officer in exactly how this exploit happened, and you as the analyst might understand that I might be technical and you might want to go into a little bit of what happened, but not necessarily all the different tools that you're going to use to fix this, but just in general, how the exploit happened. And most importantly, to move on, what was the hacker's motivation? Why did this happen? Was it a third world government that is upset of our lending policies? Is it a hacker group that just seems to be pissed off at the establishment and wants to fuck us up? Who is it? Who did this? Why did they do it? Look at hidden motives too. Yes, I'm making this up. The International Hacking Society of the Netherlands did this, and they posted a thing on their Facebook page that they're not going to stop attacking JP Morgan Chase until we stop support of third world country fascist regimes. Okay. Is that their real motivation, or is that just what they say their motivation is going to be? And then again, that requires some subjective analysis by you. Look into this organization. What have they done before? Have their motives been widely accepted as at least general motives? I'm not saying that you deserve to be hacked, but are these socially conscious hackers? Are they a bunch of 17-year-old guys and gals in Babistan that are drinking Jolt Cola that just want to screw the world up? Or is there real motivation behind this? Are they backed by a government? Or do we think they're backed by a government? Very important things. because I might want to know this as a CIO. Are these backed by a foreign government that might want to wreck our I don't know, that might want to bring down our share price because they sold short on us or something like that. And most importantly, well, they're all important. Now, this is something that requires a lot of other thought. Which laws were broken? Well, this is very common in current. I call them pseudo hacking cases with a lot of recent activity on Parler, where different people on Parler went up and before Parler was brought down, they screen scraped all of the different posts. Screen scrapes means that they went and just took screenshots and went to the code that was generated and scraped them. So now you got the HTML tags or you got markup tags with the actual content and saved it and then reposted it somewhere else. Now, depending on who you talk to, right, it's always subjective, screen scraping generally is not a crime. So this is very important. Just because it's a hack doesn't mean a law was broken. So in JP Morgan Chase, I would say, and I'm using common English, who are the bastards and let's go get them, right? Okay, we've determined who the bastards are, or the hackers or the hackstresses are. Now we've got to determine which laws were broken. Now, this is going to be another hat you're going to wear, because if you work in cybersecurity, you could work in legal too, where I'm like bringing our cybersecurity legal team. Maybe that's you. You go in there, and I'm like, all right. And then you give the analyst that does the exploitation analysis, talks to the legal guy, legal gal, and says, all right, this is what happened. And the legal gal says, interesting. Give me a second with this. And then the CIO says, which laws were broken? You don't say, you don't get Google out. Well, let me see. Let me see what. Okay, you're getting $150,000 a year. You should know what laws were broken. What was the jurisdiction of this? Where did the hack occur? Where could we get? What law enforcement agencies could we go after? We're JP Morgan Chase. Okay, we're not law enforcement. Okay, we're a $1 trillion company, but we're not law enforcement. So we need to work with law enforcement. Which organizations are out there for this kind of crime? You better know. Believe me, we don't say, hi, listen, we dial an 800 number and say, yeah, this is JP Morgan Chase, and we got a question for you. Someone hacked our device, and, are you calling the Chicago Police Department? No. Are you calling the FBI? Maybe. Did it happen in Japan? Well, the FBI probably can't. They're a U.S. law enforcement agency, or are they? Is it an intelligence brief? Do we know people in the CIA? Is it a government thing? Were government banks involved in this? Right? Where our application was hacked, but somehow our systems hooked to the Federal Reserve System? Probably. Which law enforcement agencies can help us? Who do we need to put together for a team? Again, just don't Google and say, well, according to the Cybersecurity Act of 2021, when things like this happen, it is a federal issue. Okay, if I'm the CEO and you explain this to me, this is your last day at work. I need you to be able to tell me which jurisdiction we can reach out to help us with this. And finally, I just kind of end here, if they were caught. I want I have they in here, so let me just change the wording of this. Look at similar cases. Look at similar things. So if you're providing a briefing to me, and I might say, well, I heard this happen with Citibank. I'm making this up. I heard this happen with Citibank. What did they do? Who were they? Were they caught? How were they charged? Did they get time? Did they not get time? What can we learn from the people that have done this before, right? And get intelligence from this, or create intelligence from this. The people that have done this kind of things before, who were they? Were they caught? And if they were, did they do time? Where did they do time? What were the terms of their incarceration? Because that's going to be a precedent for what we're going to be doing. Precedent, not president, or precedent, where when we work with law enforcement, we could say, hey, you know what? hey, you guys are the law enforcement people, but this did happen with Citicorp, and this is what happened. All right, so these are the penalties that we're looking at, actually, suggesting that people get, or at least being informed on this. Because as a CEO, I might say, who did it in the past and what happened to them. So you can explain it to me. Oh, well, Citicorp, a similar crime happened in Citicorp in 2019. This was the group, and they were charged with this. 4 got acquitted, 4 did jail time, 1 still on the loose. Some we never caught, right? And then now I'm interested in that. I'm like, well, why didn't we catch them? Were they under pseudonyms? Are sometimes hackers work as a group under a single name? That's intelligence I need you to give me. So anyway, that's a summarization of the 4 points or the 4 pillars of exploitation analysis. So thank you for sitting through my presentation. Thank you for making it this far. And I bid you all a very happy and healthy, and please be safe rest of the day. Thank you.